Okay, recording started. Hello, good morning. It's our open public meeting session for APAC friendly session, which means it's super early for people. I mean, even for me, it's early, which is 9 a.m. for me. Even though we have many people, so awesome. Welcome to all of you. And I think we have at least 2 new people. I'm not sure if Clemens, did you join before?
No,
this is the first time.
That's my first appearance in this circle. Yes, I talked to Fran before, but not in this group.
Okay. Do you want to share a bit?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm the lead architect for Microsoft's Azure messaging services in the product team. I'm the co-chair of the Oasis AsyncAPI technical committee, and I have been the architect mostly of CNCF Cloud events. And in our team, we own Azure Service Bus, which is a high-scale queue-based message broker. We own Azure Event Hubs, which is a high-scale event streaming engine with downstream services also in or near our team in the form of HD Insight for analytics, which also hosts a Kafka service, and Azure Stream Analytics, as well as Azure Synapse. That's all in our world. And then we have Azure Event Grid, which is a push-based event broker for discrete events that's implementing cloud events. And then we also have the relay. And then around this, we have numerous other messaging services. We have the Azure Queue, we have Azure IoT Hub, which our team also incubated, which implements MQTT, and amongst many other things. And so we have a very broad portfolio of 9 hyperscale messaging services in our world. And we are interested in AsyncAPI, similar to how we're interested in OpenAPI. I've been following the developments for a while, and I think it's interesting for our customers. We're also getting asked by analysts about it by now, which should make you happy. And so we're now looking for ways of how we can probably contribute to improving it. And ultimately, we have a very strong stance towards open standards, and we want to have open standards be the way how interfaces happen. So we're very principled around things like AsyncAPI, and AsyncAPI is our primary interface for everything. And we believe that the AsyncAPI model of how messages look should be the one that is supported, in most message brokers that exist. And so that's one area where we can probably help if you guys were at all interested. And the other area is cloud events, which we built as an abstraction on top of AsyncAPI and MQTT and Kafka and HTTP, etc. Because not everybody has a use case for AsyncAPI, frankly. But tying it all together and tying it into the application, building a kind of contract model for the application is something that is kind of sitting at a layer just yet above that, all of that. And that's something where you guys have, I think, plugged the hole. And so we're interested in seeing whether and how we can go and help with that, and also then build something that can integrate AsyncAPI with the products that we have.
Awesome. Sounds awesome. So definitely, I'm the most interested with cloud events here, because we're getting a lot of questions from people like how we can use both. And I mean, we had some ideas. There's even one blog post from Fran where Fran explains how that could be done, how it could be accomplished. But I'm gonna send you a link to a issue created by Fran where he explores how we could even more natively support cloud events.
Yeah,
in the spec.
I think there's a very natural fit here, because what cloud events is mostly concerned with is the events and how they're getting published and what their metadata is. And I think you are more concerned about how events and how event flow ties into the application per se. Yeah. I think that's a natural fit. Also, cloud events is intentionally agnostic about the contents of the event, which means we don't care about payloads at all. I think that's a little bit more intertwined in the model that you have. So I think we can make those things work well together without there being too much conflict. At least that's my hope.
Yeah. So
I think we have to, right? We have to, because I mean, I keep seeing more and more people using AsyncAPI plus cloud events, plus other technologies, right? So it's like we have to do it. It's like if we have to change something on AsyncAPI. So I tend to see things from the perspective of the user instead of from our perspective as authors, because it's like it doesn't fit so well with AsyncAPI. Imagine that it doesn't fit so well with AsyncAPI. Well, then we may have to change AsyncAPI and make it fit, right? Because the user needs it, right? The user is working with these technologies, so we have to adapt to the user needs over time, right? So and cloud events is just for us one of the let's say one of the priorities or one of the things that we want to integrate into the spec, like to make AsyncAPI like a spec of a specs, which it's a I don't have a better way to define this, because in short, I will say, because every spec is a spec of specs. If you think about it, like every spec is composed by many RFCs and many other stuff, right? So, but you know, a spec of other API or event the driven architecture specs, right? So that's what I mean. And I think we have to do it. And OpenAPI is the next one, probably on the HTTP, on our HTTP binding. We already support Avro. So AsyncAPI plus cloud events plus Avro is a case, plus Kafka is a case that I keep seeing more and more in the industry.
Cloud events. What's important about cloud events is that it is really a suite, an abstraction suite that sits on top of all the various transports, and it defines how cloud events want to be mapped to transports.
Yep.
So if you look at it as a transport per se, that's probably the sanest way of looking at it. So if you want to talk cloud events and you want to, then you get all the benefits of using it, of having its transport bindings with it. And there's obviously a combination that you can define of, but it tries to stay out of the way of what you usually do with transports. It basically just defines, if you have a cloud event, this is how you fold it on top of an HTTP message. But then there might be extra things you do with an HTTP message, which then are contributed from AsyncAPI or AMQP. So there's effectively, you have the cloud event, you explode that onto an AMQP message, and there might be extra things you may want to do with AsyncAPI, which I tried hard to defend the moat on to not seep into cloud events. So for instance, if you wanted to define a reply path, so set the reply to in the AMQP message, my feeling for cloud events was that it's not appropriate to go so far to create relationships between services in cloud events, because cloud events is really about the event delivery and not thinking about how the greater application would think about it. But I think that's something that's in scope for AsyncAPI. So there's a line here that is defined effectively by the principles of cloud events, of what it does and what it doesn't do. And then I think I keep saying OpenAPI. AsyncAPI can go and use that cleared space basically above that to for its definitions. But I don't want to go and monopolize the meeting with my introduction.
So just as a follow-up, I've sent you a link, I mean, to everyone in the chat to this issue where there's this discussion about native support for cloud events. So if you have time and some opinion to share there later, then please do. Barbaño, as well, it's your first time on the meeting. Did I pronounce your name correctly? Barbaño? Yeah, okay. Do you want to say something? You don't have to. It's just, I'm just asking politely.
It's Barbaño, like España.
Because I don't see the accent in the.
Yeah, because it doesn't have it.
Okay. So we also have Lorna and Dale, and Zoltan, but I think it's not your first time, right? You were here at the meeting. I mean,
yeah.
It's not, but I need to introduce myself again.
Please, if you want.
I'm here in a new context. So
okay, cool.
I changed jobs at the beginning of January. Now working for Ivan, we're a cloud data hub. So we deploy things to clouds, and the things include Kafka. So suddenly, boom, async API. So I'm kind of onboarding with Kafka and onboarding with a lot of the ops side of it. But most of you know me from Async API community. So I'm planning to bring all that goodness over and try to encourage our users to know how they can async API with our Kafka. And I'm just like, there's a load of Kafka Connect and things and stuff and schema registries and whatever. So I'm like deep into a new world. So I'm here, you know me, but I have a new context now.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
And I'm happy that you already kind of, you're focused on the Async API because you said that you're known from Async API community. So you probably wanted to say Open API community.
And already I said Async API,
but you said Async API, which is awesome because you
which
already
is also
think
true.
about Async API. So
I consider myself claimed by this community.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome.
So does anyone have any questions? Anything to add before we jump into the agenda? Because I have only one item in agenda, probably something additional that I will ask Fran, or actually I will ask Fran first. So do you want to add that we started actually new cycle? Maybe because I didn't put it in the agenda and I didn't ask you yesterday.
That's fine. I wasn't expecting it, so but that's fine. I like improvising. So
I mean,
so yeah, we started.
Words, that's it.
Yeah, it's a few words. So for those who don't know, we work in cycles of six weeks, and then we stop for 2 weeks where we contribute to other open source projects or fix bugs on async API. So that's how we work. Happy to tell more about it. I don't want to explain the whole thing again here. But so yesterday we started a new 6-week cycle, and we bet that because that's how we call it. We made a bet that we're gonna implement a feature on the generator, basically on the AsyncAPI generator, which is let me share this with you, which is about code generation. Okay, so it's actually not code generation, it's more about data model generations. So from code generation, the hardest part for everyone is to generate like Java pojos, structs on Go, or data types if you want. That's the hardest part usually. So we want to take this complexity ourselves, so people don't have to take this complexity. And well, Maciej and Jonas are working on this now, and in 6 weeks we should have something if they manage to accomplish the bet. So, which I think they will. Yeah, so oh yeah, you already shared. Thanks, Maciej. So well, actually, yeah. What I'm sharing is more like a nice view of the current progress, and yeah, just at the end of the cycle, we'll have a better way to generate data models in various languages.
Are you going to use? Are you going to use a template-based model?
Well, that's up to Maciej and Jonas. So Maciej, if you want to make a
we wanna base the data model generation on the templating, on the React under the hood, and then if someone wants to use this, I mean the function to generate the Java modules, the TypeScript class, JavaScript class, etc., so then this person can use inside the code. So yeah, we wanna base on the templates, but it's at the in the first week, 2 weeks, we wanna try to do that. If we cannot, then we probably go to the string literals, pure string literals. Yes, but this is also the template.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, thanks for sharing, Maciej. And yeah, I don't have anything else to add. At the end of the cycle, I'm sure that we'll have a great way to generate code, data models. So yeah, great step forward for the user, I guess.
Thank you. And the second topic, something from my side. So we a bit of context. So you not sure if you know, last year during the Hacktoberfest, the Hacktoberfest is this event sponsored by DigitalOcean where you have 1 month in October where people can contribute to open source. And we engaged with this event pretty strongly, let's say. We prepared a lot of issues and we helped a lot of people within the event. We got a lot of contributions, and few people mentioned to us that because of the level of our engagement and how helpful we were, they suggested that we should actually try Google Summer of Code. Like I said, an organization apply to be part of the event, and yeah, we decided to do it. We'll offer 2 mentors, so we'll apply for 2 student positions in general. I will not go too much into details of what Google Summer of Code is. It's a pretty known event, but if you want, I can just shed some light on it. But I'm talking about this because we want to do it not just like alone, us like me, Fran, or Maciej, just think about ideas. We would like to grab the ideas for good tools for AsyncAPI from the community as well. So I'm gonna share with you a link to the Google document, which is available for anyone for edit. I hope nobody will troll us and remove at some point of time all the ideas. But yeah, I think it's a good approach to just fully open the document. And if you for the couple of next weeks have some ideas, because we don't have to provide in the initial applications all the ideas. Over time, if you think about some tool and you see that the core team doesn't have time to implement it because we have different focus, but maybe someone from Google Summer of Code, if we of course get accepted, maybe would pick it up, then just show your idea here. Please just explain a bit what you're thinking about. It can be even the most crazy idea, like the one I've put about chatbot. And please put your contact name. And don't worry, it doesn't mean you're gonna have to be a mentor for the participants. It's just rather for us that when someone will pick up the topic, we will of course have to contact you to get a lot of a bit more of the context, so we can actually mentor people with the given topic. And I mean, as mentors, we have to obviously understand the idea.
Sorry to interrupt, Lukasz. Am I the only one that's hearing noise on his voice?
No, I'm also hearing that.
Yeah, it's Lukasz's audio. Everyone else sounds great.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But it was from the very beginning, and you just told me about it.
Yeah.
Seriously,
I was trying to tell you on Slack channel.
It wasn't too bad, but it's really
it's getting worse.
now.
Yeah, that's why. And I thought it was my AirPods, but it's not.
How about now?
No, I think your fancy microphone is broken.
No, I just restarted it and it didn't have.
Well, maybe it's physically broken.
Yeah.
No changes?
No.
No.
It sounds you have some cable issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like white noise.
Yeah, it's something with contact or cable or something.
Then at the end, that's all I wanted to say. Fran, you can pick up the meeting.
We can hear you, no worries.
Yeah, you can continue. It's just for you to know.
No, but it's actually everything I had to say about this initiative.
It's better now.
It's gone.
No.
It's gone
You
now,
fixed it. You're all set for the rest of the day's meetings.
Awesome.
Yeah, don't move. And that's the most important.
I mean, what I did, I just unplugged it and plugged again. So.
Well, that fixed it.
You're a pro, clearly.
Yeah. So you know IT crowd, no problems. That's okay.
Isn't it how we fix things?
In the past, I worked in IT support, so I know how to restart things and unplug. That's easy.
Precisely.
So yeah, whenever you have some idea, we would love to grab your ideas and have them there.
Just because we had that same discussion in cloud events, take a good look again at the Google Summer of Code conditions and terms and conditions, because somewhere in section 8 section 8 reveals the actual purpose of the Google Summer of Code, because Google HR Google Recruiting is entitled to use all the data that has been submitted there to use for recruiting and to contact everybody who's been involved in this, just so that you know.
I mean, they won't be able to hire me, so I'm not afraid. And I'm sure that whoever will participate with us, he'll gonna love the AsyncAPI and stay with us.
Just so transparency of why Google does that.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, they know everything about us, so it doesn't matter. So
that might be true. But for our governance laws in the cloud event group, that was something that was not palatable.
But cloud events, it's part of CNCF,
CNCF,
right?
yes. Mm-hmm.
But CNCF and the Linux Foundation took part in the cloud
yeah,
events,
but we're having reservations because governance is per project in the CNCF. The CNCF has, and the Linux foundations have, when it comes to governance, no principles whatsoever. You can show up and you can say, we're going to run this project as a total dictatorship, and the Linux Foundation will probably be okay with it.
Okay.
As long as you are explicit about it, they'll be fine.
Okay.
Interesting. So,
thanks for the insight. That's nice.
Sure.
So, any other questions, topics, anything you want to add? That's the best moment because next meeting is in 2 weeks, and it's in the Americas.
Oh, you mean in overall? Anybody has any questions?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Okay, because so there's nothing on the agenda.
So. Good, great. So then let me ask questions about how you guys see because you're writing code and you're writing spec, and so I'm wondering how much you think of this as a code project versus how much you think of this as a spec project.
It's both. It's spec project and tooling project because I mean we believe, and it's Fran mentioned it many times, that spec is not just enough. You have to have reference implementation done independently from vendors to boost the adoption of the spec more.
Okay.
Yeah. So in my opinion, I think right now because of capacity, basically, so it's we are not able to do everything that we wanted to do. We've been dedicating too much lately to code and not so much to the spec. But that's like that's gonna it's like kind of a roller coaster, right? So from time to time, what's going to happen is that we're going to dedicate more to the spec and less to code. So right now we're focused on creating these reference implementations that are good enough for the user to use with the current spec. But since our partnership with Postman now, we will now have enough people, right? Enough people to work on the spec plus the tooling. So there will be some people working full time on the spec.
Okay.
At the very least, 3 people at the very least. Full time. Then you'll have some people who are not from Postman, obviously, working on the spec whenever they can, and that's fine. So I think that's great. And the way we're gonna do this is that we're gonna separate the spec from the tooling, right? We're gonna separate it into a new committee, if you want. Whenever we set up things, there will be a committee for the spec and a committee for the tooling, and the committee of the spec will be independent from the tooling one. So development on the spec is going to happen separately, but in a coordinated way, of course.
Okay.
So yeah.
Why you ask? Just for curiosity.
Me, because it's important. Because it's important from a Microsoft Engages perspective.
Mm-hmm.
There are different licensing concerns around specs than there are for code, and so if there is an open source project, it's something we treat differently, and we have to treat differently from pure spec projects, because there is in pure spec projects, which are really about interoperability and which are really about agreeing on what the wire looks like, independent of what the implementation looks like. There are more patent concerns and other things that may seep into the story than when you have a concrete implementation. So I have personally seen scenarios where when you talk about implementation independent specifications, and doubtlessly we have one here because that's the interest that people have in AsyncAPI Israeli. Like the fact that you have code is something that is interesting but not required, right? Because I could go and take the spec and write my own generator for C# and for whatever,
Precisely.
Or just tool it. And but all of these interoperability specs, because they create an extra layer of abstraction, they also introduce new methods of, like, patentable methods of doing certain things, and that's because the world works this way. So code is usually subject to copyright, and specs are not. So they are subject to copyright, but the methods, you can patent the methods that are defined in those specs. You can't patent the code.
Yes.
So I have myself seen scenarios where 8 people sit in a room. They discuss a certain way of doing interoperability. One person walks out of the room and calls a patent attorney. So because of
that's pretty rude, actually.
Yeah, I know it's rude,
but it's reality. Yeah,
but it happens.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying anything.
Right. So I'm just saying that happens. So this is why in spec world you have these RAND and FRAND terms, and you have agreements that what I just said you'd never do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why that gets a little bit more difficult from our perspective. And as working at Microsoft, I have to go to different people depending on what the project is. So if it ends up being a standards project, which I would like it to be from my perspective, then I have to go to our standardization folks in our legal department. We have a whole stable of folks who do nothing in standardization strategy from a legal perspective, and talk to them and I need to fill out a set of forms that say this is what we do, this is blah blah blah, and then that gets run up the flagpole and gets approved. So there's a very formal process with that, and that's why I'm asking that question, because if we decide to be serious about this, we have to go and check all the boxes in terms of the legal terms, and then there might be people coming to Fran also to maybe discuss what the terms are, because we are pretty insistent on having that all clean, right? We've co-founded several of these open source or open standards organizations. We have folks who are kind of on the top of the world in kind of organizing those things, and they're generally involved in these matters, and that's what happens.
So if that helps, I'm gonna just add a little bit to what Clemens said. So we are well aware of this, and thanks for sharing anyway, Clemens, with the community. We're well aware of this, and that's why we are in the process of discussing joining Oasis or Linux Foundation or something, something similar. We're probably just as a matter of taste, myself, and as a matter of opinion here, we'll probably end up joining Linux Foundation. If everything continues the same way as it's going, it's probably going to happen pretty soon. And the reason is that I'm saying this is that it's going to be, so the spec is going to be separated into a separate foundation, if you want. In the case of Linux Foundation, it's called Joint Development Foundation, which is it's a foundation only for specs. And whoever wants to contribute to the spec needs to sign some papers before they do it. So the papers that Clemens was mentioning, like, I will never do this, and this, right? so that's something that Linux Foundation and other, not just Linux Foundation, or Oasis as well, know very well, right? How to do it. And also it allows you, it allows us to become eventually an ISO standard.
So
over time, of course, with more details, of course.
So that path is harder with the Linux Foundation. I'll just I have a bit of insight because we had the same discussion about cloud events, and eventually somehow it didn't end up in that foundation. That was a branch that was somewhat recently resurrected. If you really want this to become a capital S standard, and also then go on the ISO path, and then Oasis might be the better place. Oasis is, from a process perspective, Oasis has a lot tighter processes and has kind of pre-built processes, which the Linux Foundation doesn't have in that stringency. There is a lot more process in Oasis, and Oasis is also, as an organization, much stricter on who can participate. In the Linux Foundation, you are generally, like, they give you the bylaws in that particular branch that you're looking at, but otherwise you are fairly liberal. You can be fairly liberal in how you run your project, because the Linux Foundation generally has the attitude of not reining into what you run. But from a legal perspective, just to be super safe on rights and isolation in terms of patent claims, etc., Oasis is the better place. And Oasis has a very good history of driving standards up to ISO, because the document formats that they have are preset, and the document formats that they have are such that they can effectively feed directly into ISO. The document formats are something that the staff manages. So there's a lot of management that you're getting from Oasis, which you're simply not getting from the Linux Foundation. So it's a tough call between those two. You get more liberty effectively on the Linux Foundation front, you get more formal process on the Oasis front. But if your goal is to be ISO, then Oasis is the better path.
So I wasn't mentioning explicitly just because we want to become an ISO standard or anything. This was just like an ad,
Mm-hmm.
If as an example that the path can be there, right? Like can be chosen. Like it's not, at least from my perspective, it's not our goal to become an ISO standard.
Okay.
It will be cool, you know, like, and all these things. But honestly, our main goal here is to become open and useful for the user.
Great.
Not to continue, right? To continue being open, even to continue being open now, to become more neutral than we are right now, because we're not neutral at all right now. So the spec is under my name, and that's not neutral. So that's why we're making this move, and we want to make it more neutral. We want to form a committee or various committees, so it's more neutral, right, over time, and then useful for the user. I honestly don't care if it's an ISO standard or whatever it is. Right? It's like, it's like, this is like cool for my ego, if you want. You know, it's like I create an ISO standard, yay, but that's not the goal.
But
I think the two messages. Sorry, I think the two messages is important here. What you're just saying that formalize some sort of formalization from your perspective or big corporate perspective is important, and what Fran is saying right now is. AsyncAPI is on the way, right now, on a rapid way to some kind of formalizing that kind of things. The format, as I hear, is not decided yet. So which way? And I think it's really great to hear this insight. I mean, that's enlightening. What are the differences? I think for you guys also that hearing that someone has wanted, someone went to this path, so we don't have to do it again. Yes. So I think that's the most important. So this kind of points, and yes, and then these are just a chain of decision points like ISO, not ISO, whatever. I don't know. Yeah. But the most important from what I understand from that one, and everybody says that it's anyway how we form it, there is a spec here. So that's which makes this thing very interesting. And if it's a spec, there are some legal consequences, as you mentioned, that needs to be cleared out to be really useful. So to reflect to what you said, you want to be useful. So that's also part of it. But you are also already on it. Of course, it's not the, how I say it, not the brightest side of this world, but have to be cleared out. Yes. Yeah. So I think that's that kind of thing to find out what is the format, foundation, not foundation, this foundation, that foundation. It's important to have that something in place to get the rapid contribution and more open contribution from like you guys, as I understand. Yeah. And also this discussion at the beginning that you said with cloud events, just to merge or discuss this kind of things, that's also required that this kind of things in place, some sort of. Yeah, so that alignment is interesting, and it could quite well be that AsyncAPI might be a good fit with the serverless working group, or at least there's some cross-working. The other concern to weigh is, and that speaks for the Oasis side, is that you'll find the MQP and MQTT folks in Oasis, and that's aligned. But we've had some, as long as you have some personnel crossover, that's fine too. Like every project kind of stands on its own. I just want to say that there's pros and cons for both sides, and Oasis will give you more formal process and will give you more tools for formal process. It will also it's much better in conflict resolution than the Linux Foundation is, because you have to go and effectively in the Linux Foundation more or less write your own rules for how you run the project, while in Oasis that's given. Like every project runs kind of the same principles and runs on the same governance framework, and that's something that the Linux Foundation just doesn't give you. But that's ultimately up to you. From the big corporation perspective, on my side, it's really important that it's on neutral grounds, and that's where you're going, and that's great. Because
and that it's governed by a set of bylaws that my legal department has already signed off on, and that's the case on both ends. So ultimately, that decision is really with you, and neither choice will make a material impact on whether we can contribute or not.
No, that's great to.
So right now,
yeah.
So right now, the project as it stands, that's difficult for us to go and engage, because it's your thing, right?
Yeah, and the bigger the company is, the more enterprise it is, the harder it is, right? Because usually we face that challenge with other companies as well. That's why it's not the reason, right? It's more that this is another reason why we want to move into a neutral ground, like you said, right? It's like it's also because I want to remove myself from all these legal things in a personal way, right?
Yeah,
So
but it's a necessity, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So and this needs to keep being a community project, and the best way is that it ends up in a foundation and not in a company, right? Yes. And also now that we joined Postman for developing the project, to keep developing the project. If I keep the project under my IP, let's say, or under my name, it could be seen as this is a Postman project, right? Oh, my cat is. Oh.
Oh, this means war. With the cat.
Oh, damn. Sorry.
Everything right?
Okay. Yeah, everything's fine. Even the cat. She's just trying to get some attention for food. So yeah, I might have to feed her.
Well, okay.
So I was saying that. What was I saying? So I was saying that this could be seen if we continue this path. Then it could be saying that, oh, this is a Postman project, and Postman is manipulating the direction of the project, and blah blah blah. So to remove all these things, that's why we're going into a foundation, right? So yeah, so that's I wonder what the other people in the call think about it. Like maybe Lorna, since you've been on OpenAPI, contributing to OpenAPI for some time, maybe you have some feedback here.
I definitely think so I haven't really introduced my employers to AsyncAPI yet. I mean, because I can just write some blog content and start to be part of the ecosystem and see if any of our users start showing up and asking questions. I think it is important that we have lots of different people using it. We used it a little bit from MQTT and was completely confused. And you helped me with it that time. So for me, it would be good to have more voices from more organizations, and also from, AsyncAPI is not just tied to HTTP or whatever. So it does need to have good representation, or users, at least voices from the other, from all the different stacks that we hope it will apply to. So I think both those things, both the corporate diversity, but also the technology diversity, both those things I think are quite important. But I'm a spec contributor to OpenAPI without holding any formal position there. Like, they have a process where you say, I'd like to do this. And they say, well, we're not calling it that. And once they've bike shedded your tag name, then your change gets accepted. So, and I found that, okay, glacial, but standards can be a bit slow, right? But it was good, and there were lots of different people representing lots of different, often conflicting points of view, and I thought that was quite healthy. So I kind of aspire for this project to have the same visibility and then the same engagement. I think we're at the visibility stage right now, though.
I think it's very important that that what many mentions here. I'm working in the corporate world. You can say that. So my history is consulting and architecting and working with this kind of standards. And as I mentioned to Fran that in this year I would try to do more contribution for you guys. So I try to allocate my private time for that. But from the other side, I have to say that I totally agree with that. That clearance is very necessary. So because if we, and one thing, it's useful for developers, but the developers are sitting at corporates. And at corporates, there is an imminent question when you are using a spec or a code or something. Yes, there is always an open source initiative declaration, how we use open source, how we use this, how we use this. That's a question because you know that's legal. I mean, and then we have to serve the customers, and the customers also asking, I'm secure to use this standard and spec. So for example, let's say it's a healthcare application, and then everything just stops because some legal make a cease and desist order on the whole software, and then the whole hospital have to stop because of that. So these questions, I mean, so when it's just a hobby code and hobby project, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Also, in private life, it's just code. You know, we share that kind of naive approach that everything is open and free. But when it comes to, you know, yeah, production, I would say that it's very important. So for that one, I think it would be nice if we can have some kind of roadmap, again, like you just introduced this 6 weeks life cycle for the code, to something about how this goes. So also providing some kind of security for like Clemens, that okay, that's happening. So we not just talk about it, but okay, that is happening. So it's not like we ending up in a scenario. It's people are understanding, as you say, that visibility or recognizing it as a postman thing, but people understand that this is not a postman thing. This is something, as you Fran said, it's a community thing. It's an open thing. I think it's it's an important message. You have to be out and repeated because that could cause confusion, and it's important for the corporates. I would say that when the real world usage, that it's clear. And there is a path for it. So it's not necessarily has to be done. It's very important. No premature optimization, but it has to be a roadmap for that. So it's also we need a plan. It's not necessarily have to be done. It's not like an urge of having it done, but it's an urge of having a plan, and that plan is visible. So it's trustworthy. Yeah. So that's actually, my point of view.
We had a roadmap for last year that's probably extending to this year because we couldn't accomplish everything, right? So one of the things that was on that roadmap was precisely that, right? Like precisely establishing this formalization, right? Like getting into a foundation and getting into a neutral ground, like call it foundation and call it whatever you want to, like whatever neutral ground, yeah. And legally speaking, get rid of the IP myself and get rid of the trademark and you know all the legal stuff that can be a stone in the way. So so hopefully we'll get this done in this quarter for sure.
Oh, good. And so the timeline for this is this quarter?
Yeah. It's probably gonna happen next month. So
fantastic.
So, yeah.
That's great.
So yeah, so that's I mean, I don't want to commit to any specific date, but I would like to reinforce the most probably, because there are things that don't depend on me, right? So I want to say that this must probably happen next month. I mean, if you tell me most probably is happening even this month, I will say. But yeah, like let's say this is in this quarter. It's going to happen in this quarter for sure. Right.
Chill. No one wants you to give a date, but you can hear already that's the point. If we have a plan, the plan is important.
So that's it.
And the update on the plan and the regular update on the plan is important. That's it. And then of course we can always discuss this. Okay, we're discussing this for a long time, and then we escalate or discuss it more, or asking if we can help or something. But yeah, it's cool.
So
good news.
I want to. Well, I cannot share this. Anyway, I have some things mixed. So actually, in my to-do list, I have it prioritized by high priority, medium priority, low priority, right? And my top priority right now is host project in Open Source Software Foundation.
Great.
This is that. Until this is done, I will not continue with anything else. So that's my whole thing right now. I'm dedicating my whole time to this and hiring, of course, hiring for working on the spec and working on the tooling as well. So that's all I'm doing right now. I'm not doing anything else. I just want this to be solved.
Seems I've picked the exact right time to show up here.
Yeah,
because that is a prerequisite more or less for us to engage. And if you're as soon as you're solved that, I can go and write down the standards decision record, as it's called, and then we can engage. That's already something that, I mean, that's a decision that I can make. Mm-hmm. And so I said we're interested, but you're just fulfilling the prereqs, so that's great.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
And just that it's also a highest priority for me for the governance. I've moved my priorities that now I'm like, my main thing is to research how we can shape up the open governance model here.
Yeah.
So if you have, from your past experience working on other communities, knowing their governance models, if you know some areas that we should not go to, just you can offline write to me privately, like there are some black spots you should not go to.
I would recommend that you take a look at the rules of cloud events, because that is there's a community section in the cloud events repo, and that has been working exceptionally well. It's probably the most functional multilateral working group that I know. That is in large part really owed to the most excellent leadership of Doug Davies from IBM, who's been leading this with a calm hand, and who's been doing all the political negotiation that needed to be done. It was very contentious for a while. But it's always, it was always kind of at the technical level and never really ever personal. But we had hard fights, and the governance rules came out of this, and the principle came out of this. So I can only recommend those. So it's in GitHub under Cloud Events Spec, and there in the community folder, there are the governance rules, how we operate, and how we think about PRs, etc. And I can probably ask Doug to have a meeting with you guys, with me, to share some best practices if you guys were interested, because Doug would certainly be open to that.
Sounds awesome. And we know Doug because Doug presented cloud events at AsyncAPI conference last year.
Okay, so that's perfect then. Awesome. So if you need to have advice from someone who is a master of the art, ask Doug. Doug is really, really good at it.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for offering help. Yeah, I think I linked to the right place, right, on the chat. I think so, right? It's a governance document.
Yes, that is one. That is there's a. I think the. Let me see whether the government's documents.
It's good to make sure for people watching the recording, that they have the right.
Mm-hmm. Cool. There's the votes. There's a principles section, and I think that's in the spec per se. Let me just.
It's nice that the spec contains the principles. I love it. It's like it's part of the spec.
No. We have a bylaws. Hang on. Give me the moment to find this, because that is really important. I'm just looking for the right keyword to search for. So we wrote this down in the primer. Let me just find that. So the primer that is about the project, but it also contains quite a bit of information how we think about what qualifies and doesn't qualify, and how we think about proprietary versus non-proprietary. So just let me go and paste that here as well. So here we wrote down effectively what does qualify and what does not qualify.
I think you sent this message to me directly, Clemens.
Oh,
I think.
Sorry.
Yeah. Instead of,
so let's do that again.
Yeah.
Here we go. So there's prior art that we're referring to. So this is effectively the overview, if you will, the primer, but then the history, where we've come from, and then this qualifying protocol section is about how we think about interoperability. Those are our interoperability principles, for instance, so that we are not a forum where a single vendor can go and just anchor their proprietary products in. Right, that was very important to us, so that nobody just shows up and says, "Hey, we're an open forum, but we have never published our wire protocols, and so therefore here's a way how we can go and wire in our proprietary stuff," right? And because that's not the goal of these abstractions. The goal is to further interop and not to enable open washing of proprietary products.
Good point.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
so that's and so that was a long fought thing to make sure that we're really open. And if you read through this, then you'll find that there are a few even open source projects which are hard at the edge of being eligible for this or not, because they're not following openness principles. I have a mission, and that is make everything talk with open standards and based on open standards that are vendor neutral and project neutral. So I'm against everything that's a proprietary API on any product, and even on Kafka.
Yeah. Because
Kafka is a project proprietary protocol, and really that should not exist. And the same is for so I'm just all for open protocols. That's my
news. You are not alone on your mission, yeah. So that's okay.
Yes.
That's good.
So
we can help each other, I think.
Great. So if you guys
agree in that as well. Yeah.
Okay. That was my very long answered question, and I think we're out of time. But thank you very, very much for all that information, and I think I will get agreements in the leadership over here at Microsoft to engage.
Awesome. Thanks for moving
Great.
that. So what I'm reading from this conversation here today is that we need to communicate better our plans, maybe. So that's what I'm reading here. We always try to be as much transparent as possible. So this is probably our biggest gap in transparency. So yeah, message received, or ACK, right? I can say ACK. So we'll try to make it more transparent in terms of what's the roadmap, or how the roadmap looks like, and what we're working on right now. Because we're trying to be transparent with this website that I share, is AsyncAPI Shape Up, which is what we're working on right now, but it doesn't include what Łukasz and I are working on right now. So yeah, so that will be great as well. Yeah, to be transparent on that front as well. What do you think, Łukasz?
I mean, I already started, this kind of transparency by just having a issue where I list all the things I'm working on with a priority list, so I can already share that with you.
You just need to make it more visible, maybe.
But now it's not really much visible, and yeah, we have to put it somewhere.
Yeah,
we just have to put it somewhere. But my priority about the governance model, it's visible there, so you can already have a look. what are the plans on my side? I just pasted the link. But yeah, Fran, you just have to extend it with your list. And we need to publish it somewhere, maybe on AsyncAPI page, website.
Yeah, that would be great. That it's on the website maybe, and it's easy to find on the website. Maybe even on the front page, right? That you go there, and even if it's on the bottom or something, like just go there, it's there. It's embedded there, so you don't have to navigate anywhere. Just you find it there, right? So yeah, and that will be fine because the website is also on GitHub. So also the website is also open source. So so yeah, and part of the project as well, like any other project, like any other code or spec or anything. So yeah. Cool. Okay, great chat today, folks. A lot.
Super good input. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for joining.
Thanks for joining today. Thanks for the input, Clemens, in that. Thanks for Zoltan, as always. You're always very helpful on these meetings, giving us your input. So this is great. And thank everyone.
See you next time.
See you next time in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye. Have a nice day. Bye.